Do you think you still remember the cast of New Jack City Cool, Stylish, Unforgettable? But 34 years later, everything has changed. Time, illness, and broken marriages have left them almost unrecognizable. And some have passed away tragically without the world even knowing. Leave a comment with the number 1 and stay with us as we uncover their shocking transformations and pay tribute to the legacies they left behind. There are roles that feel written by destiny itself, and Scotty Appleton was the one that called Ice-T's name. In New Jack City, he wasn't just a cop. He was the soul of the streets, the growl of anger born from wounds that never healed. His eyes burned with the pain of the ghetto, his voice echoed like a curse hurled at Nino Brown. It wasn't just a chase, it was an exorcism of the ghosts eating away at his soul. At 33, Ice-T portrayed not a flawless hero, but a weary warrior, one willing to bleed to protect the last flicker of light, still fighting to survive in the darkness. But that glory nearly shattered like sea foam. Just a year later, the song Cop Killer exploded like a bomb, igniting outrage from Capitol Hill to the White House. Politicians growled, police unions boiled over, even the president struck down with condemnation. Record deals vanished. Radio stations went silent, and Hollywood slammed its iron doors shut. Ice-T, the man who had conquered music, and the silver screen now found himself lost in the storm, feeling like the whole world was tearing his dream apart. New Jack City might have been a blazing high point, but it was also the edge of a deep abyss where hope seemed to die young. Then he rose again, not by bowing his head, but through the power of an unbreakable spirit. Films like Ricochet proved he could stand tall on his own, embodying characters rough-edged and scarred by life. And then came the golden opportunity, like a miracle Law and Order SVU. As Detective Finn Tutuola Ice-T flipped fate on its head. From a once reviled enemy of the law, he transformed into a symbol of justice on the small screen. The curses of the past faded away, replaced by applause that has lasted for more than 2 decades. It wasn't just a comeback, it was the triumph of a resilient heart, turning pain into unstoppable strength. Still, peace was never a gift easily granted to Ice-T. Vicious rumors swirled around his marriage to Coco Austin, painful cracks formed in his relationships with his children, and whispers of arrogance on set cut deep like sharp blades slicing through his tough exterior. He shone under the spotlight, but his inner battles never ceased, like a raging underground river beneath a calm surface. Now, at 67, with a $65 million fortune, from music royalties, a long-running role on SVU, and a rock-solid real estate portfolio, Ice-T hasn't just survived, he's conquered. He's turned every scar into a shining medal. This is a journey not made for the weak, but for those brave enough to embrace the darkness in order to find the light. Amid the chaos of New Jack City, where gunfire echoed through the streets, crack cocaine devoured souls, and smugglers laughed in the face of justice, one quiet figure stood out like a lighthouse in a storm. The old man, played by Bill Cobbs, wasn't chasing power or riches. He was a weary witness, his tired eyes etched with the fractures of a broken neighborhood. His brief scenes carried the weight of a whisper from the grave, representing an entire generation cast aside by history. There were no glittering awards, no red carpet praise, but it was that quiet gravity that carved out Cobbs's place as Hollywood's storyteller. He brought dignity into darkness, turning madness into a ballad of resilience. But behind that dignified facade was a journey soaked in blood and tears, a path where Hollywood rarely opened its doors wide enough for him to truly shine. Even after delivering unforgettable performances in The Hudsucker Proxy and The Bodyguard, Cobbs was pushed to the margins, forever cast as the wise old man with the philosophical smile. Every audition was an uphill battle where he had to scream with his eyes pleading with the gatekeepers of power to see that he wasn't just a good line of dialogue, but an entire ocean of emotion held back. His pride burned bright, but the industry was cold as a blade, trapping him in a narrow frame he could never quite escape. That pain cut even deeper when he was blacklisted, all because he dared to turn down a demeaning role that insulted the dignity of black actors. During those years, the phone stayed silent like a grave, and when it did ring, it was only for scraps minor roles on small screens, just enough to get by but never enough to soar. Even in blockbusters like Night at the Museum, he was kept at the edge of the frame, a cruel reminder that Hollywood had no interest in letting him break free from the box they'd placed him in. It was a profound loneliness where dreams were twisted into shards, and every morning felt like a silent curse. And yet, Bill Cobbs never bowed to the scythe of fate. He forged every rejection into a suit of armor, crafting a remarkable career with over 200 film credits, each role a glorious scar. Audiences might forget his name, but that weathered face, that steady presence like an ancient tree, and that quiet strength he carried, they etched themselves into memory, a lasting tribute to the unsung heroes. That is his immortal legacy, a flame that refused to go out even in the fiercest storms. In 1991, at age 57, he became that old man in New Jack City, and in 2024, at age 90, he passed peacefully, leaving behind an estimated $5 million not in gold, but in the true treasure of an unbreakable spirit. Selena, in New Jack City, wasn't just a typical girlfriend role. Michael Michelle brought a subtlety to the character that stood in stark contrast to the violent men around her. She was beautiful, stylish, and embodied the glamour that came with Nino Brown's empire. For Michelle, the role should have been a launching pad into Hollywood stardom. Instead, her career was marked by more roadblocks than red carpets. Her first major controversy nearly ended everything before it even began. Cast in Eddie Murphy's Harlem Nights in 1989, Michelle was abruptly fired and later filed a lawsuit claiming she was dismissed for rejecting Murphy's advances. The scandal made headlines but ended quietly in an out-of-court settlement. Still, the damage was done. Hollywood doesn't easily forgive actresses who challenge its power structures, and Michelle soon found herself typecast into supporting roles that didn't reflect her talent. She fought back, earning her shot on television with appearances in ER and later on Dynasty. However, the projects didn't last. Shows were canceled, storylines rewritten, and Michelle often found herself written out. On paper, she was a rising star, but behind the scenes, she was fighting against an industry that didn't know what to do with her. Her struggles weren't just professional. Michelle was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, a condition that can cause weight gain and acne. Two things Hollywood has long treated as career killers for women. While male actors are allowed to age into character roles, Michelle was judged by her appearance, and her health struggles took a toll on both her confidence and her opportunities. Michael Michelle played Selena in New Jack City in 1991 at the age of 25. Now 59, she has an estimated net worth of $5 million earned through acting brand partnerships and television work. Proof that despite the obstacles, she has embodied resilience in an unforgiving industry. Bill Nunn's role as Doo-Doo Man in New Jack City wasn't flashy, but it stayed with you. With his clipped voice and peculiar presence, he stood out in a crowded film full of dealers, killers, and corrupt cops. It was a small role, but few possess such a rare gift. He could make even a few lines unforgettable, leaving the audience whispering, "Who is that man?" That gift had already been proven 2 years earlier. as Radio Raheem in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, 1989. Nunn created an icon. Raheem's towering frame, his blasting boombox, and his tragic death at the hands of the police became a symbol of racial tensions that still echo today. But while the role brought him recognition, it also trapped him in a stereotype. Hollywood kept casting him in similar parts, the big, intimidating black man who was silent or one-dimensional. He appeared in Sister Act 1992 and Regarding Henry 1991. But those projects left little room for him to show his full range. He wanted complex, layered roles. What he got instead were fragments. Behind the scenes, the struggle ran even deeper. Nunn battled chronic depression for most of his life, though he rarely spoke openly about it. Friends remember him pouring his energy into the Pittsburgh community, supporting youth programs and theater. Acting gave him attention, but it never brought peace. Every time he was typecast, it reminded him of the industry's blind spots. His intelligence, humor, and vulnerability were rarely brought to the screen. In his final years, he faced his toughest battle. Diagnosed with blood cancer in 2015, he chose silence over public sympathy. He continued working quietly, mentoring young artists, spending time with family, and staying active in the community. Even as his health declined, he maintained his dignity, never letting the world see how much pain he endured. When he passed away in 2016, many were shocked because they had no idea he was ill. Bill Nunn played Doo-Doo Man in New Jack City, 1991, at age 38. He died in 2016 at 62, leaving behind an estimated $1.5 million estate earned from film royalties, a historic home in Pittsburgh, and unpublished stage scripts that reveal a creative voice Hollywood never fully allowed him to share. Do you love this movie? If yes, leave a comment with the number 2. If not, leave a 5. There's a moment in New Jack City when the camera lingers on the hard, unwavering gaze of a gangster. That wasn't a trained actor. It was Jake LaMotta, the real Bronx Bull. He didn't step into the film to reinvent himself, but to bring raw authenticity. His presence was more than casting, it was a reminder of a fighter whose scars told his story. LaMotta's encounter with Hollywood began long before. His memoir inspired Raging Bull 1980, where Robert De Niro won an Oscar for portraying him. That film immortalized his legacy, but also exposed the darkest truths, violence, infidelity, and ties to the mafia. After the acclaim, LaMotta tried his hand at acting, but his reputation boxed him in, making it difficult to land meaningful roles. Supporting parts became his reality. He showed up here and there at stand-up clubs in small films, and yes, New Jack City. Instead of launching a new career, these roles reminded him of what he'd lost: the spotlight, the money, the respect. With every opportunity he got, the shadow of Raging Bull loomed too large, trapping him inside his own legend and the bitterness that followed. LaMotta's scandals, arrests, accusations, and failed marriages seeped into his career. Audiences saw the violence in his life more than his acting talent. By the time New Jack City came around, he had faded, clinging to cameo roles that paid the bills, but never brought redemption. Jake LaMotta appeared as a gangster in New Jack City, 1991, at age 69. He passed away in 2017 at 95, leaving an estimated $1 million estate. Pookie is an emotional bomb where laughter explodes only to shatter into heartbreaking pieces. Chris Rock breathed life into that trembling crack addict in New Jack City, making the audience laugh one moment and choke back tears the next. It wasn't just a role, it was a fiery declaration, cementing that Rock wasn't just a street clown, but an artist with profound depth, razor-sharp timing, and a vulnerability that made viewers' hearts bleed. At 26, he portrayed the pain of addiction, not with tearful sobs, but with a twisted smile turning tragedy into a masterpiece that made Hollywood take notice. From the tough streets of Brooklyn, Chris Rock grew up with deep scars from bullying and racism ghosts that haunted him his whole life, feeding paranoia and self-doubt like a slow-acting poison. His early years on Saturday Night Live were a living hell, where he wandered backstage like a ghost watching colleagues shine under the spotlight, while he was pushed to the margins, the audience's laughter echoing like mockery. Every night he went home with a heavy heart, wondering if the comedy dream was just an illusion or a curse for a black kid daring to dream big in a sea of hostility. Then, New Jack City and Bring the Pain, his 1996 HBO special hit, like a whirlwind sweeping away all doubts and giving him the respect he'd long craved, like a last breath. Thunderous applause and glowing praise poured down, transforming the Brooklyn Kid into a comedy king. Yet that glory was just a fragile shell masking a crushing pressure. Every show was a battle with himself, every burst of laughter a temporary poison soothing the loneliness. Success wasn't a healing salve, it was a fire that warmed him, but also burned him from within, a reminder that the peak always hovers close to the abyss. In Hollywood, the blockbuster dream shattered like glass underfoot head of state, and Down to Earth crashed at the box office, cementing the curse that he was just a funny guy, not a leading star. Then his 18-year marriage collapsed in 2016 like a thunderbolt after infidelity revelations laid him bare before the public, the shame tearing at him like a wild beast. And the tragic climax came in 2022, Will Smith's slap at the Oscars, a moment etched worldwide, capturing him stunned on stage, his heart breaking under the blinding lights. It wasn't just a physical blow, it was a wound to the soul, unleashing panic and fear that consumed him, turning every performance into a desperate flight from the darkness. But Chris Rock, with the strength of an unbreakable spirit, rose from the ashes through 7 hours of weekly therapy, facing his trauma like a warrior wielding a sword. That image of him standing tall is now an indelible part of his legacy, a reminder of the fragile nature of glory. Today at 60, he reigns with a $65 million fortune from solid real estate explosive comedy tours and his status as the most influential king of his generation. Rock hasn't just survived, he's transformed every wound into an undying flame, proving that true stars are forged in tragedy. Nick Peretti isn't your typical clean-cut detective. He's rough, sarcastic, and unpredictable. In New Jack City, Judd Nelson brings a sharp edge to the character, playing the kind of cop who bends the rules, argues back, and makes you uneasy. His chemistry with Ice-T's Scotty Appleton adds grit and humor to a film already boiling over with tension. For Nelson, it was a chance to step out of his 1980s teen idol image and prove he could handle darker, more mature roles. But Hollywood isn't forgiving, especially to actors who refuse to play by its rules. After the glory days of the Brat Pack with The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire, Nelson's career spiraled into chaos. Studios expected him to always be the rebellious romantic guy. And when he tried to evolve, they pushed back. Films like Blue City flopped, critics grew cold, and producers started whispering that he was difficult. Instead of riding his fame into prestigious roles, Nelson became a cautionary tale of how the industry quickly discards its icons. The 90s exposed every crack. On set, Nelson faced accusations of clashing with directors, arriving late, and being unprepared, spiraling into erratic behavior. His demons, addiction, burnout, and reckless decisions began to overshadow his talent. Twice he was hospitalized for mental exhaustion. The press, once eager to praise him, now painted him as a troubled actor. Still, there were moments of resilience. His role in New Jack City proved he could handle crime dramas. Later appearances on TV shows like Suddenly Susan gave him steady pay and a chance to showcase his comedic side. He worked consistently, but stayed away from the spotlight, living in partial isolation in Los Angeles, tending to both the wounds and the reputation of the rebellious young man who burned too bright too fast. Judd Nelson played Detective Nick Peretti in New Jack City, 1991, at age 31. Now 66, he has an estimated net worth of $4 million sustained, mostly by royalties from classic 80s projects and family investments rather than Hollywood's embrace. New Jack City didn't just bring us Nino Brown's empire, it also introduced Detective Stone, the calm cop who refuses to be outplayed. Mario Van Peebles played him with steady authority, but the real gamble was off-screen. He directed the entire film. Balancing both roles, he transformed a gritty crime story into a cultural landmark, proving that a young black filmmaker could helm a Hollywood crime epic. But success came at a heavy cost. Hollywood never fully embraced him, despite the film's box office success. When he directed Posse in 1993, a groundbreaking black Western critics dismissed it, and studios labeled him too political. What could have been a career-defining win turned into a financial flop, leaving Van Peebles struggling to find his next big opportunity. A similar fate struck with Panther in 1995. Ambitious and highly political, it faced harsh backlash from producers and critics who called it controversial and unmarketable. Instead of opening doors, it slammed them shut, trapping Van Peebles in a cycle of fighting for funding and respect. His talent was undeniable, but Hollywood wasn't ready to give him the space to truly shine. The weight of his father's legacy only made things harder. As the son of Melvin Van Peebles, Mario was expected to live up to revolutionary standards while constantly being accused of leaning on his family's influence. That pressure crushed him at times, fueling depression and pushing him away from the industry, retreating to Costa Rica in search of peace. Mario Van Peebles played Detective Stone and directed New Jack City in 1991 at age 34. Now, 68, he has an estimated net worth of $12 million. Nick Ashford didn't come to New Jack City as a gangster or a cop. He appeared on the pulpit. As Pastor Oates, his presence was a disruption amid the violence, a preacher bringing moral clarity to a city tearing itself apart. It wasn't a long role, but it struck a nerve. The power of a voice gentle yet resolute, standing against a tsunami of chaos. Off the pulpit, Ashford was already a music legend. Together with Valerie Simpson, he co-wrote classics like Ain't No Mountain High Enough and I'm Every Woman. But Hollywood and the music industry have a way of pushing even the brightest talents into the background. Record labels put the singers in the spotlight, while Ashford and Simpson struggled for recognition and the royalties they deserved. Then came betrayal. In the early 70s, financial scams nearly left him homeless. While his songs played on radios worldwide, Ashford was living in a church basement fighting to rebuild his life. It was the cruelest irony. The man behind some of Motown's most hopeful love songs was living through despair. The 1980s nearly destroyed him again. Cocaine addiction threatened his marriage, and relentless touring strained family bonds. When throat cancer came in his later years, it took away something the world knew him for: his soaring voice. His resilience was remarkable, but the pain was never far away. Nick Ashford appeared as Pastor Oates in New Jack City in 1991 at age 49. He passed away in 2011 at age 69, leaving an estimated $15 million fortune from songwriting royalties and his famed Sugar Bar in New York. As Park in New Jack City, Russell Wong didn't need many lines to make an impact. His silent gaze, precise movements, and intimidating presence made him the kind of enforcer you wouldn't want to mess with. For many viewers, it was refreshing to see an Asian American actor in a mainstream crime saga, not in kung fu attire, but in a gritty street role. Yet Wong's career was an uphill battle. Hollywood in the 1990s wasn't kind to actors who looked like him. Directors boxed him into stereotypes: gangster with an accent, martial artist, silent villain. He fought back, often refusing roles that insulted his identity. That courage cost him jobs, leaving him caught between survival and dignity. His biggest breakthrough came with Vanishing Son in 1994, where he became one of the first Asian American leads in a primetime series. In that brief moment, change seemed possible. Critics praised him, audiences responded, and Wong finally broke free from the box. But when the network canceled the show after just a few episodes, the momentum vanished. What could have been a revolution turned into a reminder of Hollywood's fleeting attention. After that collapse, Wong never quite regained the same spotlight again. While others landed major franchise series, he drifted between small roles and independent projects. The lack of representation in Hollywood meant his talent was rarely given the stage it deserved. His marriage eventually ended, and he retreated into a quieter life, teaching martial arts, focusing on photography, and living between Los Angeles and Asia. Russell Wong played Park in New Jack City in 1991 at age 28. Now 62, he has an estimated net worth between $100,000 and $1 million. He lives modestly and is remembered as one of the pioneers who challenged Hollywood's stereotypes, even when it came at a high personal cost. Keisha is Nino Brown's cold-blooded lieutenant, a woman who handles a gun as effortlessly as she carries herself. Vanessa A. Williams brings a fierce presence to the role, making Keisha one of the few female enforcers in a male-dominated world. For Williams, it was a breakthrough opportunity to show Hollywood that she could deliver steel and intensity on screen. However, her career quickly collided with one of the strangest curses in the entertainment industry: a name. She was constantly mistaken for another actress, Vanessa L. Williams, a former Miss America. Casting directors confused the two. Credits were mixed up and opportunities slipped away. What should have been a breakthrough role in New Jack City turned into a frustrating battle just to be recognized as herself. Her legal battle with Saji over her name dragged on for years, and by the time it was resolved, her momentum had vanished. Her brightest triumph came with Soul Food in 1997. As Maxine, she finally received the recognition she deserved: strong reviews, a loyal fan base, and a role that showed her depth beyond the toughness of action thrillers. But instead of launching her into steady work, the industry once again seemed to overlook her. After Soul Food, her phone went silent. The offers stopped coming, and she slipped into painful obscurity. Behind that silence was real suffering. Williams was coping with undiagnosed PTSD and depression while raising two sons on her own. She carried the scars of a violent childhood and a failed marriage marked by abuse. Another relationship left her financially drained. What once was a promising career became a memory she could only revisit through royalties and fan conventions. Hollywood's system failed her, and the personal cost was etched deeply into her life. Vanessa A. Williams played Keisha in New Jack City in 1991 at age 28. Now 62, she has an estimated net worth of around $2 million, built from film royalties, a home in Atlanta, and public speaking engagements, far from the career she once seemed destined to have. Not all the villains in New Jack City wore street clothes. Don Armateo, played by Jonna Prea, brought the old-school mafia world into the mix. a calculating mob boss who saw the crack trade as just another family business. His scenes bridged two criminal worlds, the traditional mafia and Nino Brown's new empire. However, Aprea's career was full of near misses. He earned early respect in The Godfather Part 2, playing the young Tessio. That role should have propelled him to steady stardom, but instead he found himself stuck in supporting parts. By the time New Jack City arrived, he was still chasing a breakthrough that always seemed just out of reach. The sting of rejection hit him hardest in the 1990s. He turned down a role in The Sopranos, a decision he later called the dumbest mistake of my life. Watching the show explode into a cultural phenomenon while he drifted between small gigs left him with an unshakable regret. Behind the scenes, personal storms made things even worse. 3 divorces, accusations of manipulation, and estrangement from his daughter cast long shadows he carried even onto the set. Films like The Idolmaker and Deconstructing Harry reminded audiences of his talent, but Hollywood never gave him more than scraps of the spotlight. John Aprea appeared as Don Armateo in New Jack City in 1991 at the age of 50. He passed away in 2024 at the age of 83, leaving an estimated estate of $3 million built from royalties, modest investments, and his classic car collection. G-Money wasn't just Nino Brown's partner. He was a brother in arms who believed in the empire until betrayal tore it all apart. Alan Payne brought charisma and depth to the role, making G-Money both likable and tragic. It was the biggest role at the start of his career, one that should have launched him into stardom. But Payne never fully embraced Hollywood. Unlike many of his co-stars, he steered clear of the spotlight and rejected the constant public exposure the industry demands. That choice gave him freedom, but also sapped his drive. Rumors circulated that he was difficult on set, rewriting lines, clashing with directors, and sometimes walking off in the middle of scenes. Whether true or exaggerated, the whispers were enough to stall his career. He had moments of brilliance. Jason's Lyric in 1994 showcased his dramatic talent and earned praise from critics. Later, House of Pain gave him a steady home on television, proving he could carry a series. However, even at his peak, Payne kept a distance from the spotlight. He skipped premieres, rarely gave interviews, and quietly faded away once projects wrapped. In an industry built on visibility, he chose to become invisible. Behind the silence was pain rooted in the Harlem housing projects, where poverty and crime cast long shadows. As he grew up, he channeled that discipline into his faith, but also into strained relationships under pressure. A long-term relationship fell apart amid allegations of emotional abuse. Instead of chasing a comeback, he disappeared into a private life split between Atlanta and New York. Rarely seen at industry events, Alan Payne played Gerald G. Money Wells in New Jack City in 1991 at age 23. Today, at 57, he has an estimated net worth of $5 million built from modest real estate holdings, independent theater projects, and royalties. A career defined not by Hollywood's embrace, but by his refusal to play by its rules. More than 3 decades later, the cast of New Jack City reminds us that fame cannot stop the passage of time, nor the struggles that come with it. Their journeys are filled with triumphs, heartbreaks, and lessons that still echo today. Which of these stories moved you the most? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories.